everybody. Let me just open my PowerPoint. You'll get a glimpse into my email in a second. Go ahead. He's doing that. Okay. We will begin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Adina Lekovich, and I am proud to be a Muslim woman. Anyone else? I was really excited when I found out that there was a hole in the program this month, and that the topic of Women's History Month was not tackled, because it gave me an opportunity to talk about what I love most, which is the intersection of Islam and women and leadership. So I thought I would do something slightly different today by introducing you or reintroducing you to some Muslim women that you may be aware of already, and hopefully introducing you to some others that you may not have heard of yet. And the women that I am sharing with you today are all American Muslim women who are trailblazers, game changers, pioneers, inspiring, of different ages, and who have, in their own ways, made headlines over the course of the last year. So in this presentation, you won't find Muslim women throughout history or even throughout American history, but simply Muslim women who are making headlines and part of the national conversation about Islam today. And this topic is critically important because obviously we need more Muslim women to tell our own stories rather than people talking about us. We should be talking about ourselves, and sharing our own stories is a key part of that. So I want to ask you first a question. When you think about when you think about Women's History Month, do you know what year Women's History Month actually became an official thing here in the U.S.? Pop quiz.
30 years?
30 years ago? Close. Actually, you nailed it. So it became you nailed it, well done. It became an official month as an act of Congress in 1987. So 31 years ago. Very good. Oh, okay. It became a National History Month because of an act of Congress. But it was actually being tossed around for a decade before that. So we all know President Jimmy Carter, right? The glorious one. It began with him, actually. So first the UN created the International Day of the Woman, which is March 8th, and that existed in the 70s. And then coming up into the late 70s, many countries around the world were celebrating this International Day of the Woman. And then in the United States, there was a growing movement to turn it into Women's History Week. And so President Jimmy Carter took that by the reins and turned it into an official presidential proclamation in 1980, where he turned it into a Women's History Week. And then subsequently, it took 6 years of Congress saying over and over again, this will be the week again, and then they eventually turned it into a month. And then it was 14 states that already had it as an official month in the calendar before Congress in 1987 then voted to make Women's History Month an official part of the American calendar. So I share this with you because it's a key part of American history. And at the same time, when we think about, and I think about as a Muslim woman, how often our issues are sort of secondary, right? Or we think, American standards are so much faster than we are. There are things along those lines. That Women's History Month, really did just happen within the last few decades, is an important symbol for us to think about. And so luckily, it's a full month now. But far too often, Muslim women are erased within the stories or the conversations around Women's History Month. But as I said earlier, more and more, it's women, Muslim women, who are the public face of Islam in our country today. And I don't know if you're noticing that, but the more and more I turn on TV or see stories on social media and other places, we're seeing more and more women stepping up to the plate. So I want you to, as we go along, to think in your mind, I knew that one, I didn't know that one, so that by the end of these 18, you might be able to tell me how many of the 18 you knew about beforehand, right? And how many are new to you, just out of curiosity. There won't be a quiz, but I'm just curious. So we start with the Quran. This is a critical verse in the Quran, not highlighted this way in the Quran, but it is the verse in Surah 33 where it's a verse that was revealed in response to a woman who went to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and she said to him, why is Allah always talking to the men? Or she's addressing men all the time, or Allah is addressing men all the time through the revelation that is coming to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And so after some period of time passed, and I'm not sure exactly how much time it was, then Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam received this revelation of this verse that put men and women alongside each other in every single verse. And so I'll read it to you. I know it's a little jumbled up here. But the verse says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, verily for all men and women who have surrendered themselves unto God, and all believing men and believing women, and all truly devout men and truly devout women, and all men and women who are true to their word, and all men and women who are patient in adversity, and all men and women who humble themselves before God, and all men and women who give in charity, and all self-denying men and self-denying women, and all men and women who are mindful of their chastity, and all men and women who remember God unceasingly. For all of them has God readied forgiveness of sins and a mighty reward. And it's, this one stands out to me because there's few places in the Quran where we have this sort of construction of men and women. We have Nes, right? People, O you humanity, O you mankind. But this has a different flavor to it. And it creates a definition, right, of a practicing Muslim in many ways when you think about all the characteristics that are here. So I share that with you as a reminder. And let's talk about the first woman on the list, who's probably the most high profile, I think, Muslim woman in our country today. So anybody not know who Linda Sarsour is? Oh, cool. Okay, good. So we'll start right here. So Linda Sarsour is best known as one of the national co-chairs of the Women's March. So she, along with 3 other women, one African-American, one Latina, one white, together were the 4 co-chairs of the National Women's March that took place last year. And we know that it was the biggest single demonstration in the world that has taken place throughout history that we're aware of. Linda Sarsour did not just step into the National Women's March as her first task in this regard. She is Palestinian. She's born and raised in Brooklyn. If I had a video, it would be of her glorious Brooklyn accent. And she worked with the Arab American Association in Brooklyn, New York for many years, and then became a community organizer. And then she, when the Ferguson police shooting of another unarmed black man took place, and sadly I can't remember which young black man it was.
Freddie Gray.
Thank you. In that shooting. But when that took place, she and others came together to create an organization called Muslims for Ferguson. And it started to create this process of getting Muslims involved in this issue of police brutality and getting more and more involved along racial issues as well as core Muslim issues. And that happened 4 or 5 years ago. And so the progression of her activism, it did not happen overnight. And this is someone who is more and more developing on the national scene and who is also getting a lot of heat for it. So you're not the first Muslim woman on these stages without getting backlash, right? And as a Palestinian woman, she is getting her share of backlash for being Palestinian. There are many social media campaigns that are out there that are trying to sort of take her down. And she is more and more a public figure. So you might have also seen her on MSNBC or CNN or other places. And she really tries to use her platform for social justice issues across the board. And I think that, and the reason I put her first on the list is I think that Linda is really leading the way when it comes to the intersectionality of Muslim issues. Is not just looking at Islamophobia as the only Muslim issue, but also looking at police brutality as a Muslim issue, right? Looking at race as a Muslim issue, looking at immigration as a Muslim issue, and setting the stage with that. So that's Linda. And I have to point out that that's her daughter in the background. So this is Linda speaking at the National Women's March, and I cut off the rest of the picture, but her son was in there too. So no offense. But so she's 38, 39 years old with 3 almost grown children and is a full-time in activism. So that's Linda. Number 2 is hopefully another face that should be familiar to you. Delia Megantic is the first American Muslim to serve as an advisor to an American president. She was on President Obama's Faith-Based and Neighborhood Advisory Initiative. And it was during the first term when that was established, and she was the first Muslim added to that. Before that, she worked with the Gallup organization. Does everybody know Gallup? Right? They do polling. That's what they're famous for, the Gallup polls. So she headed up their brand new Islamic Studies Center that was created after 9/11. And the international research that she spearheaded resulted in a book that she co-wrote with Dr. John Esposito, who is pretty acclaimed on Muslim stuff, called Who Speaks for Islam? What a Billion Muslims Really Think, which was the first sort of definitive work out there that separated fact from fiction and said, here's the actual data of what Muslims out there think. She is now the director of research for a group called the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding, which is like a Muslim data think tank based in Michigan. And they are doing incredible work because to know to love yourself, you have to know yourself, right? And for so long as a community, we haven't had the data or the statistics to be able to back up what we think we know about what matters to our community. And the data that she's helping to gather is a game changer. And you might have seen her on places like The Daily Show. She gave a phenomenal TED Talk that was one of the most widely viewed TED Talks last year about perceptions of Islam and Muslims, and is just really a profound voice on a whole range of issues. So that's Delia Megantic. Number 3, Representative. I should have put Representative Ilhan Omar because that's just sacrilegious now. But so the same day that Donald Trump got elected, Representative Ilhan Omar got elected to the state legislature in the state of Minnesota. I was going to say Wisconsin, but Minnesota, thank you. She got elected to the state legislature in Minnesota. She was born in a Somali refugee camp in Kenya. She lived there for years with her family before she came to the U.S. as a refugee. She is married, a mother of 3, and ran for office because she wanted to see something different happen. And with the support of her family and her community, she did it. And she is truly a first. You can see that she was one of the people who made the Time magazine cover story about firsts, women who are changing the world. They did a series of different covers, and Ilhan Omar was one of the cover images. She is a rising star in the Democratic Party, and inshallah has a path ahead of her. And she's the only elected official I put on this list. But what I'm really excited about, or especially excited about, is that she's just the first. Because subhanAllah, we know that right now in 2016, there are more Muslims running for office than ever before. Just like there are more people of all different kinds of backgrounds running for office than ever before. And we know that there are a slew of Muslim women in the bunch. There is a 19-year-old hijabi sister who's running for city council in Iowa. There is a mid-20s Muslim sisters running for state legislature in Georgia, and they're just 2 I know among dozens. So the stakes are getting higher, and the good news is that we're participating more and more. And the power of seeing particularly a hijabi woman, right, in a public office, being the first Muslim woman to take public office, wearing hijab, is profoundly inspiring.
What date is that?
Which one? Oh, the magazine?
Yeah.
That says September 20, I should be able to read it better here. September 14th, 2017?
Okay.
Something like that. So yeah, if you Google it, I'm sure you'll find the stories.
You.
So Representative Ilhan Omar is number 3. She also was on The Daily Show if you're looking to see any of these people in action, and had a fantastic appearance there. Number 4 is not somebody this is not something that I thought could happen, I will say. Me growing up, so this young woman, her name is Halima Aden, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. She also has a Minnesota connection and also is Somali, as far as I understand. She is like the first hijabi model that is on the covers of magazines, of fashion magazines, and is now in, this is an actual, I believe, New York Fashion Week runway show. That's the center picture, and it's the Marc Jacobs show. So not like off to the side sort of designers, like mainstream designers that are embracing her. And with this, I really want to point out that this is somehow the twisted gift that Donald Trump gave us. Because public opinion about Islam and Muslims has been mostly 50-50 since 9/11. Any given year, when you look at all that public opinion data, it would be between 45 and 55% of Americans who had a positive or negative perception of Islam. You average that, again, we'll say 50-50. After Trump got elected, can you guess what public approval of Muslims is at? 70. Public approval of Muslims is at 70%, which has not happened before. So you know the Quranic verse around فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا, surely with hardship comes ease?
Yeah.
With hardship comes ease. We are seeing, especially women, making leaps forward because of the opportunities that are being created, especially by people who hate Donald Trump very much. I'm going to put it very simply, right? Because they see this as a political symbol and a symbol of resistance and a way of empowering to show that this is what America represents, not this. And that's in many ways where our dollars and the economy, this is where we can make a difference in many ways. So she made the cover of Allure magazine last year, and then that's Vogue Arabia, which there is one now. And not all the models wear hijab on the Vogue Arabia magazines, and then that one is also Glamour magazine. She's also appeared in ads for American Eagle Outfitters and other places. So, and I expect that she won't be the only one for very long. So that's Halima Aidid. Number 5, our newest sensation, Tahra Rahman, is the first woman wearing hijab to be a reporter for a local TV station in the country. Guess which state she lives in?
Dallas?
Dallas, no. Virginia, no.
Is she here?
No.
Minnesota?
Indiana.
Wow.
So Minnesota, right? Like think about the states that I've told you about so far. Now we're in Indiana, and a place where this young woman has been, she didn't like decide to be a reporter and then put on hijab and then they gave her an opportunity. No, she's worn hijab all along. And she has worked and worked and worked, and this station has given her an opportunity now. This just happened in the last couple of months, that they've made her a full-time on-air reporter.
Is that NBC?
That's the local, so good question. This is, I believe that somebody should look up WHBF and see if this is her station or if she's getting interviewed for being a reporter. Because she got media coverage, right? Like for also making this news. Yeah, so anyway, so she's another one of these figures that is slowly changing the face. And again, imagine in a place like Indiana, right? So subhanAllah, that people are turning on their TV in Indiana and they're getting their news from this Muslim woman, who's probably somebody that they can relate to and that they don't fully expect. I mean, subhanAllah, when I was in college, this is what I wanted to do with my life. And so to see now, 20 plus years later, that these dreams are becoming possible for other people, even in the midst of difficult circumstances, is extremely inspiring, at least to me. Okay, so number 6 and 7 share the same last name and the same claim to fame, but they're not related. So Hajj Mohammed and Delia Mohammed are both Olympic athletes. Do you know what their sports are? Go ahead.
One is, number 6 is fencing. And number 7, my favorite sport, track and field, 400-meter hurdles.
Well, you know more detail than I do. Bravo. So yeah, so Hajj Mohammed is a fencer. She won a bronze medal in the 2016 Olympics on behalf of the U.S. as part of the team winning the bronze medal. She also, as you can see in her hands, Mattel honored her pioneering achievement by creating a Barbie in her image. I, little girl Adina, never would have imagined a Barbie with hijab, with hijab on it. And the fact that she's an African American woman wearing hijab it has just extra significance in terms of showing Islam's deep history within the African American community in our country. And so this honor being bestowed on her and her being the first in this way feels really special and fitting. Delia Mohammed won a gold medal in, did you say the 400? I didn't remember which exact race it was, in the 400-meter hurdles. That's extra tough. Now, interestingly, far fewer people know Delia Mohammed than know Ibtihaj Mohammed. Not a surprise, probably has to do with a piece of fabric. And Delia Mohammed ran in the regular runner's uniform, but she got a gold medal. Ibtihaj got a bronze medal. There's differences here, but the attention went almost exclusively on Ibtihaj. And I put this picture here because Ibtihaj went out of her way at the Olympics to go and find Delia and take a picture together, so that she too could amplify that it's not about hijab. It is about Muslim women achieving and excelling, and there's no difference here. And I think that that's a challenge for us to also internalize, because my intention here is not just to show you 18 muhajjaba women who, are breaking barriers, but just Muslim women who in all shapes, sizes, and professions are doing that in different ways. So I hope that you'll remember both of their names, Ibtihaj and Delia Mohammed, and that you'll go out and find a Barbie. So we should make sure that we help them sell out, so that we can show Mattel that there's a market for this.
All right.
So that's number 6 and 7. Number 8, Lena Khan. Did anybody see The Tiger Hunter? Uh-oh. Okay. So Lena Khan is a filmmaker. She went to UCLA. She went to the UCLA Film School around the same time that I was there, and has been making films. First, she started making music videos for Muslim singers. She made this great one 10 years ago for this Muslim country singer named Kareem Salama. And she's been making music videos for people like Maher Zain, who's also an internationally known Muslim artist, and others. She just made her first mainstream film last year that made it into, again, mainstream theaters, not on a quote-unquote Muslim theme, but with a Muslim main character, and that film was called The Tiger Hunter. Yeah. You can see by all the what do you call them, film festival symbols along the top how well it did. Yeah. And she had many mainstream actors that were also part of it. She is not just up and coming, she's she's already on the field. And this was a multi-million-dollar project that she raised the money for, right? And so she is definitely somebody to keep your eyes on, a name to know. Lena Khan, number 8. Okay, number 9. Amani El-Khatatbe is another one of these young whippersnappers who is changing the game. At 17 years old, Amani El-Khatatbe started a website called Muslim Girl, muslimgirl.com. Because she grew up in the shadows of 9/11. I think she was in 4th or 5th grade when 9/11 happened, and started wearing hijab in junior high, and felt all the things that you might imagine, right, that she felt. And as a Muslim girl, felt particularly alienated. So the millennial response, she created a website. And that website became a hub, a place where there were articles, stories, essays by and about and for Muslim girls and women. When she graduated college, she put it all on the line and decided that she was going to spend a year making Muslim Girl all or nothing. And the good news is that it went to all, not to nothing. Because what she was able to do in the course of that year was get Muslim girls on the map with a lot of mainstream media. And she actually created a complement to Women's History Month called Muslim Women's Day. So Muslim Women's Day debuted last year, and it's March 27th, which is also my birthday. And she created partnerships with at least a dozen different media outlets so that they would feature stories about Muslim women on Muslim Women's Day. So the collage that you see there is stories that appeared in Allure, Teen Vogue, Nylon, Women's Health, Latina, and this is just a small sample of the places that featured stories about Muslim women because of the branding and the packaging, right, that she was able to accomplish within this. She also worked, she's been speaking internationally in different places, and has now started pushing Getty Images. You know, so there's this company called Getty Images that creates like stock photography when you have like generic photos that you use on flyers and things like that, or when you Google. So she raised this issue that when you Google Muslim women, what you usually see is women in a niqab, right? Or you see groups of Muslim women. It's this sort of generic, unhappy, right, picture. And so the more that she raised that, she partnered with Getty Images to create a whole new bank of stock images about Muslim women. So today when you Google Muslim women, you're going to see something slightly different. Those images are still there, but those images are changing. And when people go into professional places to find the photos of Muslim women, they're seeing women like us, right, in full diversity. And again, this is a woman who's now maybe 24, who's just at the early end of her career. Many, many things are possible, inshallah. So that's Amani al-Khatatbe. Number 10 is another media person. Her name is Leila Alawa. She may or may not be 26. This was a copy-paste image from the internet. But she created something called the Tempest, which is not Muslim-specific, but it's a website, a media website that's focused on women of color who are coming of age. And the Tempest refers to this idea, like a tempest is a Shakespearean reference to a tornado or hurricane or something along those lines. So the tempest of your life at that stage. She was named by Forbes magazine one of 30 under 30 because this project of hers is taking off in major ways, not just in terms of reputation, but also financially. And she is somebody who went through, she's one of my mentees. She went through the MPAC Young Leaders Program a few years ago. So these are people who are, again, connected to us far more than we might think. And this is their mission. We're changing the narrative of diverse millennial women in the world. So that's Leila Alawa. Number 12. 11 and 12 are the two partners who created one of the first non-serious Muslim podcasts out there. Taz Ahmed, or Tanzila Ahmed, and Zahra Nourbakhsh created a podcast called Good Muslim, Bad Muslim. And their podcast makes fun of what it means to be a good Muslim or a bad Muslim, both by non-Muslim standards and by Muslim standards. They tease apart the headlines, they talk about their own lives. Sometimes they're irreverent, meaning they offend people sometimes, to put it that way. But they are trying to be the full expression of real-life Muslims. And their podcast has done extraordinarily well and has gotten them recognized in the White House, not this one, and other places, and they've gotten all kinds of awards. And they're both artists on their, of their own regard. If anybody listens to KPCC, you might have heard Taz Ahmed sharing a story on KPCC in the last few weeks, because this is what they do. They're both comedians, artists, storytellers. So that's the two of them, and they both live locally here in LA. Number 13, her name is Mona Haider, and she first got headlines after Trump was elected because she and her husband started this Talk to a Muslim campaign where they just set up a table outside of a public place. I can't remember where they live. I want to say like Boston-ish. And had coffee and donuts and conversation with strangers about Islam. This somehow led to media coverage around that idea of Muslims stepping up post-election to help people understand who they are. So that was one claim to fame. But the other claim to fame that's just as interesting to me is the stuff on the right side, which is that Mona is also a hip-hop artist. And she's Syrian. And she wears hijab. And when she made the video, down here in the bottom right-hand corner, she was about 8 months pregnant. And her music is her tool to not just challenge popular ideas about Muslims, but to challenge Muslims about our own internal stuff. And the most controversial one that she put out, or the most controversial song, was called Dog, which is not about dogs, but it's about the controversy of so-called scholars being involved in extramarital or questionable activities, and more news coming out about those things in the last year. And so she really pushed the button and dealt with it head on through her music as a way of helping spread that conversation and asking hard questions. And you can, and it got, there's music videos, you can see, see the stuff. That's just one among many that she's done. And it's gotten her a lot of backlash, as you might expect. When you think about Muslim social media, it's not always a pleasant place. But at the same time, it has, once again, elevated certain conversations. And I think that she and many of these women are speaking to the younger generations in a way that our mosques are not always best suited for. To have these kinds of challenging conversations that we're not always comfortable with inside of our buildings. So that's Mona Haider. And people said that she also tried to be like, that this video was sort of a bite off of Beyonce's Lemonade video, and like she was trying to evoke some stuff there. Anyway, Mona Haider. Okay, number 14, another journalist. So Asma Mohammed is a reporter with NPR. And during the 2016 election, NPR sent her all over the country in Trump territory to talk to voters and see, what they were thinking about. Asma wrote a fantastic piece at the end of the election season where she talked about how hard it was to be a Muslim covering the elections and some of the backlash or discrimination or harassment that she got even as she was out there reporting for NPR, like even with an NPR media pass, that she was getting hassled, but also what that did to her in the process. So she still works with NPR, and inshallah, she's climbing. They already put her on the national election, doing racial demographics as her beat. So this is certainly another woman to watch. So that's number 14. Number 15 is another local woman, Milena Abdullah. Dr. Milena Abdullah teaches at Cal State LA, and she is the head of the Black Lives Matter movement here in Los Angeles. So when we're thinking about, what's happening here locally, Dr. Milena Abdullah is one of the loudest and most important voices here in Los Angeles around these issues. And few people, sadly, we should know her, right? I think we have brought her here to the mosque once or twice, if I'm not mistaken. But having these conversations more and more openly, so critical. Number 16 is Anusha Ansari. Anybody heard of Anusha before? So Anusha, this is one of my favorite stories. So it's a 2016 story, so I broke my rule a little bit, but I couldn't pass it up because Anusha Ansari was one of the first space tourists. So either in 2016 or 2017, she and her husband were the first two space tourists because she has a whole background in math and science and it's obviously not my background, so I don't know all the details of it, but she and her husband donated a bunch of money to the X Prize, which was examining this idea of space tourism. And so when they did their first space tourist trip, she and her husband became the first two space tourists. And so that's just, how often do you get to say that? So that's number 16, only 2 to go.
Oh.
All right, number 17 is another woman in fashion. Lisa Vogel is a convert to Islam who started a modest clothing line called Verona, and it's growing really well. I mean, there's this whole scene of Muslim fashion out there now and Muslim fashion companies and everything, but Verona is special because Macy's is now carrying Verona stuff in their stores and online. So you can now buy modest clothing and hijabs, right? They were not labeled hijabs on the website, but at Macy's and through their website. And so this idea of Muslim consumers or Muslim women consumers becoming more and more mainstream and people paying attention to our pocketbooks is critical. And it comes through people using their skills, not just saying make Muslim clothing, but here, I'm going to make the kind of clothing that I feel comfortable in, turn it into a professional business, and then take it into these places. So Lisa Vogel is pioneering in that way. I think Macy's is the first company to incorporate a quote-unquote Muslim fashion line into its offerings. And number 18, go back to the athletes, is Bilqis Abdul Qad. At least that's what I think. I know Bilqis is right. I think Qad is right too. So anybody heard of her before? So you know what she does, right? So Bilqis in high school was the top scoring high school basketball player in her state. She broke the records in her state, and I can't remember which state it is. It's not Indiana because that's where she went to school. And then she won when she went to college. She also played, got championships with her team. Then she graduated and she wanted to go into professional basketball. And there are professional women's basketball leagues in Europe and in the US especially. But wouldn't you know it, the International Federation of Basketball did not allow hijab as part of its uniform. And so Bilqis, and I can't remember which organization worked with her, but they sued the International Basketball Federation over this hijab rule. And it took, I think, 2 years, but just this past year, or just within the last year, the International Basketball Federation changed its rules to allow women in hijab, or women to wear hijab as part of their uniform, just as we see Bilqis in this picture. So through her hard work, determination, perseverance, she was able to help get the rules changed, not just for her, but to make this sport more accessible for women coming after her. I'm running out of time. So now I've given you 18 women, right? Let's zoom through real quick. Now I want you to tally for yourself how many of these women you knew beforehand, right? I'm going to just pop through, and you can count for yourself. Okay, so who thinks they have the highest number? Did anybody know 10 of them? Nice. Did you know 11?
I think so.
Did you? Yeah, well, bravo.
Yeah,
All right.
the last one, she went to the University of Memphis.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for doing the research. The University of Memphis was Bilqis. So 10 is great. So where did other folks end up?
7.
7, 4, 2, 5.
9.
Excellent. So we have a whole range. So mission accomplished, because my intention was to introduce you to women that you don't know. I think that in this day and age, it's really easy for us to feel depressed.
Yeah.
And to feel down, and to feel like they're out for us, whoever they is. And I know that I myself feel that way sometimes, even as empowered and knowledgeable, and doing this work as I am. And the fact is that, like, the world is changing around us, and it's not happening to us. Muslim women are changing it, right? Alongside Muslim men, alongside people of other backgrounds. But when we think about, the face of American Islam today, I would have a hard time. This is a good challenge for me, actually. Maybe I'll do this. I have a hard time mentally thinking of 18 Muslim men that I could fill slides with on the same level that I'm filling slides with these 18 Muslim women. That's a challenge to myself, because I know that's a big statement. But I think that it's a combination of things. I think that Muslim women are certainly catapulting. But I also think that the cameras and the attention are turned on us, because there's an interest in promoting these faces, these voices, these stories. And I think that we should use that interest to our advantage. This is the time more than ever for us to encourage our girls, for us to amplify their voices, for us to help them do things that are impossible. Because there are Muslim women in our country all around us today that are doing things that are impossible, that are getting basketball rules changed, that are competing for the Olympics, that are the first, reporter on local television, that are making mainstream films. And all of these things are possible, and today, right now, it's not just our kids that need to know that the future is bright and that they are part of it, but it's also us that need to be reminded through the lens, hopefully, of Muslim women, that we're extraordinary, we're doing wonderful things, and that we should believe in ourselves and continue to raise the bar. So with that, I've about 3 minutes left for questions or any comments. Let me take the sister in the back, yeah.
You missed the Muslim judge, African American.
Oh, thank you. So I thought about that. So the one I'm thinking of is Carolyn Walker. And I had her on an old presentation, but because she wasn't in the last year, year and a half, I took her out to make room for others. But you're right, there is, and I believe she's in New York State. Her name is Carolyn Walker. She's African American, and I don't know what level. Do you know what level she's a judge at? No. Google will tell us the answer. And if there are other women that, again, should make the cut, please, let's add more names to the mix.
Yeah, I'll add Rashida Talib. She's an assemblywoman. She's running for the United States Congress here in Michigan.
That's right.
And one might say Michigan. In fact, her particular district has less than 1% of Middle Eastern population. So she's not determined.
Yeah.
There's a woman.
That's a really good one. So thank you for that. And I also want to point out that there's a Muslim man who's running for the governor of Michigan this year.
Yes.
So he would make my Muslim men slides, by the way. Michigan is especially important. That's a good one. I'm going to put that on my list.
There's a hijab ballerina. I can't remember her name. She's in Australia, though, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I know she was making headlines.
Yeah. Okay, I'll consider her. If she's in Australia, she doesn't make my list, but but I love the idea. Go ahead.
Maybe it's a good idea to show the movie here.
Which movie? The Tiger Hunter?
Yeah.
Ah, you know what?
Even with a small fee or something. And
Yeah.
the boss,
We'll look at that.
It's certainly possible, because I know that they've shown films here before, and Lena, again, is local. She lives in Orange County. So I will look into that.
with her.
And I think it's like PG or PG-13, so we don't have to worry about things. Yeah.
Even
Okay.
if it's not, I mean, it's good to shock people and to have them react.
Absolutely. Yeah, that too. All right. Any last questions, ideas? Are you scratching your head? Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
I'll just add in the Inland Empire, there is a lady, I don't remember the name. She's running for the City Council of Corona. Her daughter is an assistant to Assemblywoman Alois Reyes.
MashaAllah.
And her daughter is 22 years old.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's
So the
wonderful.
mother and daughter. Mother is running for the City Council, her daughter is.
MashaAllah. That's wonderful. Yeah, and we know, what's her name? Raida
Hamida.
Hamida
Yeah.
also works with Congresswoman Sanchez.
She used to.
She doesn't anymore, I see. So, final thoughts is that it is crucial that we know our history, that we know our shining stars, so that we can be proud, and so that we can also show our children, our loved ones, the people in our immediate circles of what we have to be proud of. That's not just 1,500 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, or 500 years ago, or 10 years ago, but that's here and now. I don't know about you, I imagine you all felt as moved by the March for Our Lives that took place in, 800 places yesterday, and hopefully many people went out to those. But we have to, there's this actress who says, if you can see it, you can be it. And the power of us being able to see ourselves in these places makes us be able to be in those places. So may Allah guide us all as we strive to perform well, to be good in this world, inshallah, and to continue to raise the bar and excel. Jazakallah khair wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.